All right, we have a special guest joining us now. Leah Hoopes is a poll watcher and a witness in Chester, Pennsylvania, and she has quite a story to tell us this morning. Leah, thanks so much for joining us. Just want to give everybody the background here. You were a Republican poll watcher on Election Day, and you have testified before the Senate that massive voter fraud also happened in the state of Delaware. Tell us how you know this and what you allege happened.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. Actually, just to correct your statement, it happened in Delaware County, Pennsylvania.
Oh, Delaware County, Pennsylvania.
Yes,
okay,
yep.
That makes sense. That makes a lot more sense. I was thinking, how do you know anything about Delaware? But yeah, let's talk about Delaware County.
So it really started early in the morning. I was actually at my precinct. I'm a committee woman in my township. And there was it was a complete mess from 7 o'clock in the morning on. Our scanners were not working. They were having a hard time taking the ballots. So it would take like 5, 6, 7 times. So it started there. And then we ended up at the counting center in Chester, Pennsylvania, where it was just a complete disgrace, to be honest. We were in like a little, it looked like a playpen where the observers could be. And we really, the only thing that we could see was the mechanical part. And it really was like kabuki theater. It was, they let us see what they wanted us to see.
Right.
The major part was that we were not allowed in the back room where pre-canvassing was happening. No, like Republicans nor Democrats were allowed back there. There was no observation, no line of sight.
Yeah.
So.
I'm going to talk about this a little bit later in the show, but, there's a lot of these statistical anomalies that happened in this election to get Joe Biden over the president as it stands right now, one of which is that he just underperformed. He did so poorly in so many major cities in this country, worse than Hillary did in 2016, but then in these very important places where there were swing states like Wisconsin, like Michigan, like Georgia, like Pennsylvania, these are the places where he somehow outperformed Hillary Clinton in 2016. Only in those places where maybe that outperformance could have swung the election to him because those states were so tight. What do you think happened?
I think, and I explained this the other night, I think it's not as complex as everybody thinks. I think it took a few people to do just enough to make a difference. My county alone has 552,000 people, and I believe 425,000 registered to vote. And then the return, I think it was around like 330,000. So it would take, maybe 100,000 votes, maybe less than that, to make a difference statewide. I don't think there's like this smoking gun and like an SUV Law and Order moment where it's like, boom, here's the weapon that we're going to fight. It's not like that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree. I think you're one of the most level-headed persons that we've talked to about this, because I don't think it's this massive, huge global conspiracy. I think, like you say, I think it's just, you might have been in a room, and we don't know that this happened. We're not going to make an allegation here as an organization that this happened. But I mean, you could see how just a few people in a room who all know each other, who are all friends, who are all big-time liberals and hate Donald Trump, could have maybe just done something. And in a situation where COVID comes into play and all of a sudden you have nobody watching you because there's this virus where everybody has to be kept in another room, you say, this is a great opportunity. If I was ever going to do it, now would be the time. Now, we don't know if that happened or not, but it is pretty interesting. I want to talk about one more thing. You said that at the counting center that there were multiple places where ballots could be brought in and out with elevators and many rooms that workers had access to. Talk a little bit about what you suspect there.
So again, I'm not making any allegations of whatever, but for me, it's like, why isn't anyone trying to discredit what I'm saying or exonerate themselves? So the biggest thing was the placement of the counting center it was in the middle of a huge parking lot set back by loading docks. The counting center was set on the first floor. There was multiple places that you could, use elevators and come in and out of with ballots, which they still couldn't tell us where they were coming from. Right. And the main part was that the ballots were going back into that back room, which we couldn't see, Republicans or Democrats.
Right. There's
We had
nobody to
no
watch.
observation. So yeah, it was chaotic. It was very chaotic. Even downstairs, they had workers in the cafeteria doing, pre-sorting, which I never understood, because why do you have a sorter if you're just pre-sorting beforehand? I don't know. Nobody can kind of make sense of that for us, because they wouldn't answer our questions.
So interesting. We're going to widen this out, Leah. Stay with us. We're going to bring in Steve Cortes with the Trump campaign, also our political analyst here at Newsmax, Mark Halperin. Gentlemen, good to talk with you. Steve, first want to go to you. I mean, some of the allegations she's making are the things we keep hearing, is that they didn't want anybody to see what was going on. They used COVID as the excuse. Where are we as far as these lawsuits go when you're talking about the kind of things that Leah is alleging here?
Well, listen, of course, the lawsuits are ongoing, and you wouldn't know it if you only listened to corporate media. Thank goodness for outlets like Newsmax, because this has been a very good and very consequential week for the litigation, both of the Trump campaign itself, as well as allied litigation. What I mean by that is folks like Sidney Powell, who are operating in their own capacity. I think that her filings that she put forth and made public this week are very significant, extremely detailed, and have a lot of eyewitness allegations. People like Leah who are willing to come forward and sign sworn affidavits and say, this is what I saw. For example, let me get specific here. In the state of Georgia, at the State Farm Arena, the big stadium in Atlanta, the supposed water main break was actually a single toilet in a large stadium that had overflowed. That was used as a pretext, as an excuse to clear the building of everyone except for several people who were operating on Dominion systems that, as we well know, are readily able to be manipulated. So we have dozens and hundreds even of sworn affidavits around the country of people who saw firsthand, not hearsay, who firsthand saw that they were not being allowed to watch, to either to not watch at all, or if they were able to see, what they saw were quite blatantly frauds going on right in front of them. For example, what were clearly Trump votes being put into a, quote, Biden pile. And again, these aren't just rumors out there on the internet. These are real people with real credibility giving sworn statements. We're seeing that all over the country. Thank goodness for honest people coming forward. And we also know, those of us who weren't involved in the vote count, we know we've seen with our own eyes things like at the TCF Center in Detroit, another stadium where counting was going on, where they were literally papering over the walls of the counting room. I mean, we know that something terrible is going on when you have to paper over the glass so that nobody can see in, no observers nor media.
Yeah, I never heard a good excuse for why they were doing that either. I was waiting for, okay, give me something. Give me some excuse for why you're just blocking this off. I never heard it. I never got it. Let's go to a quick soundbite here from the president talking about the astonishing vote total for Joe Biden.
No way that Biden got 80 million votes. By the way, the only way he got 80 million votes is through a massive fraud. There's no way that he got 80 million votes.
Can you give us a timeline on when you're going to present this evidence?
So, Mark Halperin, obviously the president's skeptical of that huge number. It's like 15 million more than Obama got in 2012. It's an explosive number for somebody that didn't really work very hard to campaign to earn those votes. I want to ask you, I mean, when you look at what I just talked with Leah about, Mark, how it seems like Biden overperformed in exactly the cities and exactly the states he needed to, while underperforming in all of the blue cities that didn't matter. What do you make of that? That's a big allegation from the Trump side.
Well, I think the simplest explanation is the same reason the president would tell you why he lost the popular vote, which is you don't need to win lots of extra votes in California. If you're Joe Biden, you need to target your resources in the places that are going to make the decision. So they clearly spent more money in those places. But I think stories like Leah Hoopes are ones that are really tragic for the country, because it shouldn't have come to this. These are all issues that should have been baked into the campaign or the election officials' process of how they were going to process these ballots. We knew this was going to be a high turnout election. We knew that there was going to be a lot of scrutiny. And to have the kind of account she's given, things that weren't a surprise, these are the basic nuts and bolts blocking and tackling of election administration, really surprising to me and disappointing, because it's the kind of transparency that would be required no matter who won for there to be confidence in the outcome.
Steve, if Trump had just eked this thing out and there were people like Leah here making these kinds of allegations, how would the media be handling this story?
Oh, listen, they would be aghast, of course. And Leah would be a national star right now talking about it on even places like CNN, of course, if the president had prevailed. We believe he did prevail in the legal vote, but if he had prevailed according to the counts as currently presented by a lot of these states. Look,
Right.
I think the reality is here as a country, no matter who's going to be inaugurated, and of course I believe it's going to be Donald Trump, but no matter who's going to be inaugurated on January 20th, as a country, it's critical for us to make sure that what's happened on November 3rd, just a few weeks ago, never happens again in this country. We cannot have this kind of a chaotic and I would say fraud-ridden election circumstance in the greatest republic in the history of the world. I mean, we simply can't have it. We also can't have a count that goes on for days and weeks. A lot of congressional races are still not called in this country. So we have much work to do. That's bigger picture. In the coming weeks, though, we believe that we have more litigation. We are going to continue, the Trump campaign, continue to make the case that this president won the legal vote in this country, and also the constitutional case that many of these states, Pennsylvania being perhaps the worst in this regard, these states effectively created two classes of voters who were subject to entirely different regimes, as it were, of scrutiny. One class of voter, primarily Trump voters who showed up on election day, being subject to serious verification and validation, as they should, but the massive amount of mail-in vote subject to almost zero validation. That creates two classes of voters. It is unconstitutional, and we believe it warrants these legislatures taking a hard look at whether or not they can actually certify these results as presented.
Okay, Leah, just one final thing for you. The way that this story, what you allege and what you saw, the way it's been handled in the media, are you surprised?
Not even a little bit. It's, to me, they're just helping to cover up whatever it is that they don't want us to see. It's not surprising whatsoever, and I'm thankful for you guys for getting the truth out and giving me a voice. I know that I speak for many, and it's helpful. I know it's helpful to others to speak up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Leah Hoopes, thank you so much. A poll watcher with a story to tell. Great to talk with you, Leah. Thank you so much. Steve and Mark are going to hang out and come back after the break. So we'll see you here in just a minute.
Newsmax TV is now America's fastest growing cable news channel. We give you the real news you need. So subscribe to our YouTube channel and give us a thumbs up. If you like this video, share it with your friends. Newsmax TV streams live on YouTube for free. Newsmax TV, real news for real people.